Okay, I think we're live. Excuse me for being a numpty. Yep, we're live. Okay, hello. If anyone is watching out there in YouTube land, say hello. If you're not watching, doesn't matter, I'm recording it. So, gonna start talking now. So today, I'm here to talk about Trail Run Australia, the 10-hour ultra, I think, which is a new event coming up on the Sunshine Coast, October 25th. And I'm excited for this event. It's going to be an awesome event. I've been working closely with Robin and Simon from Into Adventure, who are going to be hosting the event. And it's loosely based around a backyard ultra format, except not a backyard ultra, which I think is really cool. So I'm going to talk about how to prepare for it and the sorts of things to expect in terms of making sure that you're ready for the ultra and things like that. So yeah, I'm excited to get into it. I've done a few backyard ultras myself. I really love the format, and I'm going to talk to you about why I love the format. So without further ado, let's get into it. So what is cool about a backyard ultra? Basically, a traditional ultra is fixed distance and you get one go, right? So you just like start to finish. There's some aid stations in between. You've got to make sure you've got all the stuff in place to take on the event at the start line. And there's really a lot of pressure because you start and then you've got to try and make it to the end, and that's it. So that's quite intimidating for a lot of people. And so, signing up for a 50K event, for example, as a starting point for an ultra is a big deal. So why I like this format, the timed format, is that it's very low pressure, right? So you don't actually have to run any amount of distance if you don't want to. You can just run a lap. And even better with this event, they're not actually saying that you have to complete each lap to be able to continue in another lap. You have to be at the start line for the start of the lap. But if you miss the end of that lap and you can't get to the start of the next lap, then you get to go on the lap after that. So it's a really low pressure environment, which is perfect for getting into long distance running. So that's why I think it's really great. And I'm really stoked that these guys are putting this on, because backyard ultras have really exploded in popularity. There's a lot of backyard ultras now popping up around the world. And this is kind of like a little bit of a twist on a backyard ultra. It's low pressure, less time, but a really good testing ground. I'm intending to be there. I've got a 100-mile in November that I'm going to do, and this is going to be a really good training ground for me. So I've got this little video here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to play it or not. Maybe not. But this is a backyard ultra that I did in Toowoomba, and you can see the format. It's pretty cool. Just a bunch of people running around, together. And that's the cool thing about this format. I know that this particular Sunshine Coast one that we're talking about is not a backyard ultra, but it is a similar concept. So oops, gone lost myself. Sorry. Come back. Where are we now? Here we go. I thought I had a chat, but I can't see the chat. Oh, there we go. Hey, you guys are here. Hey, Into Adventure has entered the chat. All right. The team's involved, so if you guys have got any questions, you can post them in the chat there. They're there. So you guys can ask any questions of the team while I'm talking. So, yeah. Okay, so that's what I love about this format. That's why I think it's great, because it doesn't matter how experienced a runner you are, you can get in and have a crack, and you don't have to run all 10 laps if you don't want to, but you could end up with 60K, which could be your first ultra if you're new to this type of thing, which is awesome. But the pace is not a goal, right? That's another really cool thing, and there's going to be lots of people to run with. So that's why I like this format, right? So every lap is an opportunity to test new things. If you're new to this type of long distance running type of concept, you don't have to carry all your gels with you. You don't have to use gels. I probably wouldn't recommend it. You can test nutrition, you can test pacing, Again, I wouldn't recommend, well, I haven't said this, but I wouldn't recommend running too fast, though, that is part of this competition if you want to run faster. Um, and there's an opportunity to reset every time, every lap, right? So you can see here this is the format of the course. This is the 6 hour, the 6K loop that they're running for this particular event. So I'm going to talk about this event in particular, but this stuff also applies to backyard ultras in general. So it doesn't matter if you're not running this particular event. Oh my goodness, YouTube is not responding. Hope sorry, I might be having technical issues. Looks like I'm still streaming. Okay, I'm still recording. My apologies if the quality is not great. I'm doing the best I can in this with this tech. I think I've got enough bandwidth. Anyway, yeah. My point is that there is a hill in this. It's a hilly course. So this is a 6K lap, but a 6K lap with this level of undulation will probably take about the same amount of time as a 6.7K lap that's flat. So, don't take that as like a win that it's shorter distance, because there is still plenty of undulation. So it's still going to be an arduous lap, on hour after hour. So I think you're going to get a pretty authentic sort of lap format experience here, even if, you're running only 6.1Ks as opposed to 6.7K laps. Again, apologies about the quality if it's not great. So that's something to consider. So let me firstly talk about the types of runners that we might see at this event, right? So I've kind of, come up with 4 kinds of runners that I typically would imagine and have met, for example, at these types of formats. So we've got first time runners. So not obviously first time ever running, but first time, event type of a thing. So in that case, this is, I've known cyclists that have done backyard ultras and that type of thing. This is a new challenge, right? So it's completely new territory. You have no expectations or habits. And all you're going to do is run a lap and then go, well, okay, am I still good? Might I run another lap? Then that's kind of going to be your approach. Okay, awesome. Thanks, guys. I'll keep talking. There's a lag on the thing, but yeah. So you just run one lap at a time type of a thing. If you're a regular runner, for example, someone who runs park runs or 10K events or things like that, more like a fun run type of a runner, then you might have a base of fitness and you might have some expectations about running events, right? In that case, what you're going to find as an interesting challenge in this type of event is that you don't have to run very fast. Like, you don't have to aim for any particular type of pace or anything like that. You're just going to be running one lap at a time and really trying to stay social and enjoy the whole experience and not really focus on time, because the lap times are completely irrelevant from the perspective of endurance. I mean, from the perspective of you going for a fast time to complete the 10 laps and win a prize, then that's different. But for most people, your goal is going to be to finish 10 laps, right? So yeah, that's the goal there, is to slow down and enjoy yourself. All right. If you're a experienced runner potentially that does marathons, then you're going to have a much better idea about how to manage your endurance for hours, and be able to maintain effort for that period of time. But on the flip side, there is no finish line in this type of event. I mean, at this particular event there is after 10 hours, but still that's 10 hours, right? So from lap to lap, it's not really like a finish line. You've got breaks between the laps too. And so that really adds an element to it, because what I've found is that sometimes running faster laps and having that cool down in between laps is kind of challenging, because your legs can sort of stiffen up. And so what actually ends up working better in my experience, if you're going for just endurance and enjoying the run, is to actually slow down and walk a bit and conserve your legs so that you actually have less time off in between laps. So that means your muscles don't cool down as much and you kind of stay warm for the whole duration. So that might be something to do if you're preparing for longer style backyard events or, you know, ultras, as opposed to, you know, treating this as a race. So for the purposes of this talk, I'm going to imagine that you're preparing for ultra marathons and backyard ultras, not like run 60k as fast as possible. So yeah, and if you're an ultra runner, you know, like me, then you're used to running for a bloody long time, right? Even if you've just done a 50k before, you've done probably run like 6 to 8 hours for 50k is a pretty good time. So you're used to running for a long time, but there's still a challenge, unless you're a backyard ultra runner, is there's going to be this start-stop on the end of every lap. So again, I think, you know, I know guys that love running 100k events and they're like, oh, I don't know about that lap format, because, you know, you're running the same lap over and over again and you're not going anywhere. So it's kind of like a longer-ish outdoor version of running on a treadmill. For those guys, they're like, I'm not into it. So it's a different type of mental experience, which is cool. But yeah, everyone's going to have a different sort of like perspective coming into it. And that's kind of like my little take on what might be your challenge, as depending on the type of runner you are. So what I recommend is you have a good pacing strategy, okay? So I don't recommend running your bum off every lap. So I would suggest, you know, what might be a good strategy is like 45 to 50 minutes per lap, even more, you know, 50 to 55 if it's a challenging lap format and you find that undulation is taking it out of your legs and you're walking more. It doesn't matter if it takes you 55 minutes to do a lap. You ideally just want to be able to get you know, a bottle refill. If you're having water, you know, I definitely recommend taking water out with you. Grab a couple of snacks to put in your belt or whatever you're using, different things like that. Just getting those quick refuels, that's probably going to be enough. And, you know, shake the legs out a bit, do a couple stretches, and then get back out. You know, it's sustainable in that way, right? And you know, as it says here, walking up hills in ultras is always a good strategy. You know, you're only running up hills if you're trying to compete. So having said that, I don't know, the interventure guys can chime in a bit, whether you can finish the lap in time if you're just walking all the uphills. I'd say you probably can. I don't think that that's going to be a problem. But yeah, trying to walk, you know, and have a sort of walk-run strategy is always a good idea. You know, like people I've run backyard ultras with, they'll often say have a ratio that they'll work to, you know, like, you know, 6 minutes running, 1 minute walking, for example, things like that. You don't have to be that rigid about it, but finding a rhythm. And when you get to know the course, you'll figure out what your rhythm is, because you'll go, okay, this section is a good walking section, and so on. So you'll start working on the on your own rhythm and where you like to walk and where you like to run. You know, looking at this course, I would be running all the downhills. Do you know? For sure, that would be me. I'd be walking up hills, you know, jogging the not so steep up hills and running the downhills. That would be my strategy. Of course, as long as I was going for endurance. Anyway, so yeah, so thinking about your pacing strategy, and you know, that's where going out on the course is going to be a good idea, right? So going and actually running the course, if you're local to the sunny coast or you're in Brisbane or whatever, getting a feel for what you're in for so that you can train that. That would be a recommendation. One thing that's really important in any kind of ultra, whether it's this type and you like running for 10 hours, is no joke, and you want to make sure you want to have a good nutrition strategy so that you're going to have enough energy throughout the whole run. So one thing that's a sort of like rule of thumb for ultras is about 60 to 100 grams of carbs an hour. The number's been going up over the recent years in terms of how many grams of carbs are recommended, But yeah, I would be aiming for a minimum of 60 personally. And with this type of format where it's slow, you can actually go. Awesome, thanks guys. You should be able to finish if you're going. What am I saying? Yeah, if you're going slow, you should be able to eat real food, and that's why I would recommend having some savory options as well as sweet options, because in gels, um, yeah, you're gonna get sick of gels, right? So if you're a kind of person that's used to doing running events and using gels, I would definitely start training real food and doing low intensity running, and even practicing running with more calories in your stomach, because that's what's going to make this a much more enjoyable experience if you get used to eating more food as you run. So and having a variety of things. So as it says there, sweet and savory is not a bad idea. These stroop waffles that are pictured here are great. Different types of bars might work, but you can get into nuts, you can get into lollies. That's the great thing about this type of course, where you can go and grab more stuff from your tent every lap. Then that you can have whatever you want. It's not about weight. That's not a problem. So yeah, you can really kind of have whatever you want, which is really cool. So I would definitely recommend testing this, and I'll probably talk a bit more about like the training aspect, but you definitely want to practice your nutrition when you're training, right? To make sure that when it comes to race day, there's no surprises. That's a real key goal, is making sure there's no surprises on race day, okay? And having said that, another thing that's really important is having crew, okay? Because if you have a crew, and I know that there's like a team-based option for this race as well. So there's options like some people will actually have a team and be swapping out team members through the run, which is cool. But if you've got people at the start-finish line at your tent, that's going to make a big difference, especially if you're taking the best part of an hour to do the lap. You want to be able to have them do thinking for you. In 10 hours, you're probably going to be able to stay mentally fairly with it, as long as you keep that nutrition going. The more your nutrition drops off, the more your brain's going to go into that kind of foggy place where you can't think straight, which can cause problems. And then the crew will definitely make it easier for you, so that you can think straight. Well, you don't have to think as much. So your crew will be able to refill your bottles for you, get food into you, tell you, hey, how's your socks? Have you got any hot spots in your feet? Different things like that. See if you need to take your socks and shoes off, clean your feet, put some fresh socks on, things like that. Because you definitely want to stay ahead of things. That's a general principle in ultra running, is you want to stay ahead of things. You don't want to let problems get worse, right? So if you get hot spots in your feet, you're better off stopping, finding the hot spot, and taking the rock out or whatever might be causing that, and resolving that problem before you continue, because even ignoring it for half a lap could cause a problem. But having a crew there is going to make a big difference for you, okay? So I definitely would recommend, if you can get some mates out there to help you out. But one thing I've also found is that in these types of events, there's always lots of people around, supporting other people as well. So, there's always an opportunity to potentially rely on other people's crew a little bit. Say, hey, can I get a hand with something or whatnot? If you're out there by yourself. But yeah, the more you can get people out there helping you, the easier day is going to go, right? Another thing that's really important in this type of event, and for me, this is like a real big principle in running backyard ultras, any type of ultra, is getting a bit of a routine. And, that's just like your own personal routine of how you go about your running, right? So finding your rhythm of when you drink, when you eat, when you walk, when you run, any little resets. So one thing that I do as a trainer and a coach is I teach people movement, And so when I teach people movement, I give them lots of cues to set their posture up really well, and all that type of thing, and make sure that they're firing from their butt, like that their whole movement patterns are strong, so that they're running efficiently and with a strong body, and not causing any breakdown in their muscles and overload on any area of their body. And so that gives them like mental cues to think about. It's like, okay, if I'm starting to feel soreness or fatigue in any particular area, I need to go and check in on myself and see what I'm noticing there. So that's really important from my perspective, is having these like little mental routines that you can go through if you're starting to struggle or feel like a little bit down, because over the course of 10 hours, you're likely to start feeling a bit down at some point in time, especially if you haven't gotten your nutrition right. If you have too much food or not enough food, there's always this sort of like stomach pressure that can happen, especially because, on the sunny coast, the weather's not always like super accommodating. It's often quite humid, so with the humidity, your stomach doesn't really like take food on and drink on as well, because your body's trying to cope with cooling itself as well, and your whole core temperature is higher, all these different things. So it is harder to stay on top of nutrition and feel generally good in that type of weather, right? So in that case, you are going to have more low points, and the more you can stay calm, mental check-ins. I help people with breathing too, and I would give you like breathing suggestions to, for example, focus on breathing with your footsteps. Breathe in nice and deep, breathe out nice and slow. That helps with your digestion, and using things like mantras and whatnot. All like these little processes can help you kind of find a good rhythm and just like lock in and just kind of go with the flow, as it were, because this type of event, going with the flow, is like the best thing to do. So that's what I would say, finding those little things that help you with your rhythm, and just keeping that going throughout lap to lap. So then, mental strategies. So another big piece of this is about like having those mental strategies. So, what you'll find, because you're doing a lap course, is that you'll become more and more familiar with the course, and you'll start breaking it up into sections. So, it's like 6.1k. You might end up breaking it up into 1.5 to 2k sections, or even less, because it will become very familiar. And so you can kind of like tick it off as you go around, which is good, because for me, especially this type of course, there's going to be a lot of variety. So the laps will probably feel like they're going by pretty quickly. And that's what I find really cool, is like if you can really just enjoy the process, you'll end up running 60k before you know it. And you'll be like, holy dooly, I never thought I could run 60k, So that's what I think is such a cool thing about this. So yeah, just focusing on like the next little bit, keeping up that routine that we talked about with your hydration and nutrition. And, another thing that I've found really helpful running this type of format is talking to the other competitors. Like that can make the whole thing go really quick. If you stay less in your head and, just talking to the people around you, like trying to maintain good vibes and enjoy the whole thing, then, you can actually really enjoy the whole process like even more. So it can really help the time pass too, because if you take your thoughts out of your head and into what's going on around you, you can really enjoy it more. And I talked about sort of those physical check-ins, having a mantra, breathing. It will all kind of flow. So that's what I would suggest, and you can practice these types of check-ins and things in your training. So don't always do the same type of training too. Run with music, run without music. Get used to what might come up in your head, and in particular for this type of event, I would recommend some heat training. So I am a big fan of saunas. I do saunas 4 or 5 times a week, I just like chilling out in a sauna. But like the benefit of doing saunas regularly is you get adapted to the heat, and on the sunny coast in late October is pretty humid. So particularly if you're traveling from anywhere that's not like that, you want to, and also because of the fact that we're coming from the cooler months into the warmer months, getting regular heat adaptation is going to really help you manage if it is a humid day, which it's quite likely to be, because then you're going to also need more hydration, and the more your body is acclimated to heat, the less you're going to have trouble with that. So yeah, there you go. And then movement. I want to talk about movement because I am very passionate about movement. So don't just think that the way you move is the way you move, all right? You can do a lot about how you move in a short period of time, and we have more than 8 weeks until the event, and that means that you can do a lot to improve your movement between now and then. This is kind of my main thing, because the more you're able to understand your body and like the muscles in your body, how they work, and how you can move efficiently, the more resilient you can be throughout this whole event, and the more you can enjoy the event and not worry about niggles popping up, as well as the more you can train well, so that you can recover faster from your training and enjoy the training. And this isn't all just about this event, it's about life in general too. So for me, I would suggest pay attention to your body and your movement and start working on that as a skill. I teach movement as a skill, and I think it's very important, and especially I've been working with lots of people in their 70s recently, and I'm really stoked that they're actually paying attention to how their body is moving and operating, so that they can improve their longevity as they approach, their 9th decade, I guess it is. So, some key things to be aware of to start with is being nice and tall. Having a nice tall neutral spine is really valuable. Looking up, right? So looking straight ahead, and not looking down, right? So the biggest, I would say the number one mistake I see in almost all runners is they're looking down, right? So looking down at the ground in front of you. And if you're looking down at the ground in front of you, you're bringing your whole posture down, you're turning off your core, and you're putting more load into your quads, right? So you're actually, a lot of people don't have a lot of glute awareness to start with, but if you're looking down and your whole posture is hunched forward, then your core is going to be disengaged, and you're not going to be using your big muscles. So your core and your glutes, which are part of your trunk muscles, that's where a lot of power can come from. So for me, getting a nice tall posture, keeping your head up, trying to learn about and keeping that core engaged, those glutes getting involved, right? And having a balanced stride back to front is going to make a big difference to your ability to run without getting injured, and enjoy running, feel efficient, recover well, do more training, and get to the race in good shape and all that type of thing, right? So that's my take on movement, right? So the way I look at it is like your mobility, like your muscle activation, engagement, and function is far more important to start with if you haven't tackled those fundamentals than just doing, for example, strength work, which I know a lot of runners do strength work, which is great, but there's a lot you can actually gain from doing this sort of functional stuff too. So that's a bit from me, okay? So yeah, that's basically the full outlook that I've got for you in terms of this this talk. I have a prep checklist, and I'm going to send that out to everyone that registered for this event. So if you want that, this is the link. You go to lp.poprunning.com.au/webinar registration, and you can register there, and then I'll have you in my list so I can email you. And otherwise, you can just go to my website, which is this one, poprunning.com.au, you can grab a free download, or you can get the book bundle, or you can book a call with me if you need to get some more advice and information. So yeah, that's basically what I've got there. And yeah, the other thing I can say is, if you do want some help with transforming your running, then I would say I can definitely help, and I'd love to. I do an 8-week program to help people with their movement and understanding how to run efficiently and run really well, and activate, the right muscles, be able to run longer without breaking down, and just really enjoy yourself. So I'm actually going to be starting a Sunshine Coast version of that, so in person, because most of the stuff I'm doing is online. So watch out for that on the emails. Basically, if you go into my, if you get my book bundle, you'll end up in my community, which is this one, and you'll see all the updates about what's going on. I'll need to respond to that. Oops, I will respond to that. Yes, so that's everything there. So just in to finish up in terms of takeaways, this is like just a really great experimentation path. So this is a great place to experiment, and just learn to improve the processes around running, so that you can do more running and enjoy running generally, So I look at this as a great entry point into long distance running, whether you want to run marathons, or you want to run ultras, or you just want to do events like a 5K, 10K, half marathon. You can learn so much about yourself and about the processes of running through doing an event like this, as long as you focus more on the processes and you focus less on pace and distance, So I think a big mistake that a lot of people make in training as well is running too fast and focusing too much on their times and how far they've gone from day to day, week to week, and not enough on how well are they running, how well are they fueling, what's their heart rate doing, what's their breathing doing, is there everything feeling good in their body, all these different things. There's so much that you can improve if you pay attention to those details, and those mental processes like I talked about. And this is a really great way to practice it. So for me, that's what I would suggest you be focusing on. That's what you will get out of this if you really kind of take that approach, rather than just focusing on time, distance, pace, etc. For me, that's what running's about, is becoming better at it, over time, and becoming more competent. And for me, when I first did my first 100K event, I was very overwhelmed, and it was really hard. But now I've just done so much practice of all the things that 100Ks for me is not very overwhelming or daunting at all. And 100 miles is kind of like my current kind of challenge zone, because I've gotten competent at the processes and I feel good doing them, So that's what I would say you can get out of doing this, is using it as a way to become better at the whole process of running, and understanding more about yourself and your body and how it works, so that beyond this event you're a better runner, and you can use those skills that you've learned in future events and throughout the rest of your life as well. There's that whole saying of 100 miles is like a life in a day, because there's so many ups and downs. So yeah, it's cool that way, and that's what I love about especially ultra running, is that there is so many ups and downs. So yeah, embrace the challenge, and yeah, hope that this has given you some things to think about and really work on for your event. And yeah, I look forward to hopefully seeing you guys out there in this event. And if you're somewhere else and you're doing a backyard event or another type of ultra somewhere else in the world, then good luck and enjoy that. you know, just get out there and enjoy your running. So thanks, guys. That's basically it. I don't know if there's any questions. I think that the stream has a bit of a lag. I don't even know if the stream's been working. I've recorded